Stormfront Publishing presents Shadows of Valor. Written by James Kreiger and Adolf Reicher. Performed by Thomas Richter. Chapter 5. The most dangerous creation of any society is the man who has nothing to lose. James Baldwin. July 23, 1945. 1437. Local time. Kaiser Wilhelm Institute Annex, Bavarian Alps. Dr. Garrison Kreiger's hands shook as he fed another file into the burn barrel. 3 years of research, synthetic blood formulas, cellular preservation techniques, revival protocols, all turning to ash while American boots echoed in the corridors above. The underground laboratory still smelled of formaldehyde and ozone from the last experiments. The steel door groaned open. Kreiger spun, clutching a Luger he'd never fired. An American sergeant filled the doorway, Thompson submachine gun casual but ready. Behind him, more GIs spread through the lab's upper level. "Drop the weapon, Fritz." The sergeant's German was terrible, but understandable. "War's over." Kreiger let the pistol clatter to the concrete. No point now. The Americans would take what they wanted. Ship him to some interrogation center, extract every secret. Then Nuremberg, probably. A rope for anyone who'd worn the SS lab coat hanging on the wall. "Dr. Kreiger." A familiar voice from the shadows behind the sergeant. "Still trying to destroy the evidence?" Major Sebastian Bludd stepped into the fluorescent light. American olive drab instead of Wehrmacht gray. Clean-shaven, federal, but unmistakably the same man who'd overseen security for Project Eisenherz. "Mein Gott!" Kreiger's legs nearly gave out. "They said you were dead, that Patton had you shot." "The Reich died. I adapted." Bludd gestured to the sergeant. "Give us 5 minutes, Kowalski. The good doctor and I have matters to discuss." The sergeant frowned. "Colonel Boyer said—" "Boyer sent me specifically for this." Bludd's tone brooked no argument. 5 minutes. Have your men secure the upper floors. We don't want any SS holdouts interrupting." Kowalski looked between them, shrugged, and withdrew. His squad's footsteps faded up the concrete stairs. Bludd waited until they were gone, then closed the heavy door. The lock clicked with finality. "You're working for them." Kreiger slumped against a lab bench. "Betraying everything we—" "Betraying." Bludd lit a lucky strike, the American cigarette strange between his fingers. "I'm preserving it, refining it. The Führer promised 1,000-year Reich. He delivered 12 years of ashes. But the dream itself, that doesn't have to die with him." He walked past preservation tanks that still held tissue samples, past centrifuges that had spun synthetic blood, past the blast freezer that had proven human cells could survive absolute zero. "Think, Kreiger." Bludd's voice carried the same intensity it had during their late-night planning sessions. "What failed? Not the vision of a lasting empire, not the dream of human perfection. The execution failed, the leadership, the timing. The Americans won't. The Americans will provide resources beyond our wildest imagination." Bludd's eyes gleamed with fervor. "They think they're hiring a defeated enemy, a broken officer trading secrets for survival. They don't understand what we're really building." Kreiger's hands steadied. "The frozen subjects, the enhancement protocols. All intact, all waiting. Expanded even." Bludd smiled coldly. "Patton wants weapons against the Soviets. We'll give him that. But we're playing a longer game. Decades, generations. The Americans and Soviets will bleed each other white while we perfect the technology. And then we wake our true believers, enhanced, immortal, a corps of perfect soldiers who've waited in ice while the world exhausted itself." Bludd moved closer, voice dropping. "Not a Reich built on imperial mythology. An empire built on evolved humanity, on those strong enough to survive the freezing, smart enough to plan across centuries." Footsteps on the stairs, coming back down. "You're insane." But Kreiger's protest lacked conviction. "I'm patient." Bludd ground out his cigarette. "The Fuhrer wanted everything in his lifetime. We'll take centuries if necessary. The Americans will fund their own replacement." The door opened. Kowalski again with 2 more GIs. "Time's up, Major. Colonel Boyer wants the facility cleared by sunset." "Of course." Bludd turned to Kreiger, spoke in English. "Doctor, these men will escort you to the processing center. Your cooperation has been noted." Kreiger stood frozen. Then, in German, "The enzyme formula. Will it work for extended suspension? Centuries?" With modification, Bludd switched to English. "Sergeant, Dr. Kreiger is expressing gratitude for American mercy. He's eager to contribute to medical research." As the soldiers led Kreiger away, the scientist looked back once. Bludd gave an almost imperceptible nod. The work would continue. The Reich had failed, but from its ashes, something greater would rise. Not in years or decades, but in centuries, when the frozen elite woke to lead humanity into its next phase. Bludd surveyed the laboratory one last time. Let the Americans think they'd won. Let them believe they'd tamed the Nazi threat. They were simply providing the cocoon for the Reich's metamorphosis into something that transcended nations and ideologies. He found Kreiger's private notes hidden behind a false panel. The real research, enhancement formulas, genetic markers, the blueprint for humanity's successors. Bludd flipped through the pages of human experimentation, then pocketed the lab notes. Outside, jeeps waited to ferry personnel down the mountain. Kreiger sat in the back of one, understanding dawning in his eyes. They weren't prisoners. They were collaborators. "Everything secure, Major?" A lieutenant with a clipboard appeared. "Completely." Bludd climbed into his assigned jeep. "Tell Colonel Boyer the Institute's resources have been properly cataloged." As they wound down mountain roads, Bludd began composing his report. He'd give the Americans enough truth to keep them happy. Cryogenic preservation for their soldiers, life extension for their elite. All while building the foundation for the real project. A 1,000-year Reich. It would just take a bit longer than originally planned. The dream lived. It was merely learning patience. The convoy ground through bomb-cratered roads for 3 hours. Kreiger sat between 2 GIs, their M1 carbines across their laps. Bludd rode in the lead jeep, occasionally pointing out landmarks to the driver. Former Wehrmacht positions, burned-out Tigers rusting in ditches, the skeleton of the Reich decomposing under July sun. They passed columns of DPs shuffling east, displaced persons, Germans fleeing the Soviets, Poles heading home, everyone moving somewhere, anywhere but here. The GYs watched them with professional indifference, just more human debris from a war that kept producing wreckage even after the shooting stopped. There. Bludd pointed to a complex ahead, triple-strand wire, guard towers. But the gates stood open. American flags snapped in the mountain breeze. The jeeps rolled through without stopping. Kreiger expected the usual POW camp squalor, mud, misery, men rotting behind wire. Instead, he saw order. Ranks of soldiers drilling on parade grounds, fresh lumber stacked beside new construction, the sharp crack of rifle training from a distant range. "Processing center," one of the GIs explained, misreading Kreiger's expression. "Getting Fritz ready for democracy." But these weren't broken prisoners. These soldiers moved with purpose. Their uniforms, American olive drab, fit properly. Clean shaves, fed faces. They looked like an army preparing for war, not prisoners waiting for release. The jeeps stopped before a raised platform. Review stand, Kreiger realized, the kind the Wehrmacht used for inspections, but flying American colors now. "Out." Bludd's tone had shifted, commanding. Kreiger responded without thinking, conditioned to obey officer voices. General George S. Patton stood on the platform, ivory-handled pistols, riding boots polished to mirrors. He watched Kreiger climb from the jeep with the expression of a man evaluating livestock. "Dr. Kreiger." Patton's German was accented but precise. "The genius behind synthetic blood, cellular preservation. The man who tries to conquer death itself. I am a scientist. Kreiger's voice came out steadier than expected. Nothing more. Bullshit. Patton switched to English. Boyer, get up here. A thin lieutenant colonel materialized from the command post. Glasses, clipboard, the look of a man who counted things. Tell the good doctor what we know. Patton lit a cigar. Smoke drifted across the parade ground. Boyer adjusted his glasses. Garrison Kreiger. Born Munich, 1901. Medical degree, 1924. Recruited by the SS Ahnenerbe in 1936. Pioneer in cryogenic preservation. Developed synthetic blood substitutes. Created enhancement compounds. Architect of preservation protocols that achieved a 30% revival rate. Should I continue? Kreiger said nothing. No point denying documented facts. 30%. Patton rolled the number around like wine. 1 in 3. Better odds than Omaha Beach. With improvement, what? 50%? 70? Theoretically, with proper resources. Kreiger caught himself. Why am I here? Patton turned to the parade ground, raised his voice. Battalion, attention! The drilling stopped. Thousands of boots crashed together. The sound echoed off mountains. Soldiers in American uniforms formed perfect ranks. But their bearing, their precision, Wehrmacht trained, Wehrmacht discipline. 3,000 men. Patton's voice carried pride. SS Panzer troops, Fallschirmjäger, mountain specialists, men who fought on the Eastern Front, who learned lessons in blood. Kreiger studied the ranks, young faces, hard faces, survivors. They're prisoners. They're assets. Patton drew on his cigar. In 6 months, maybe less, they'll be American soldiers. New names, new papers, new purpose. Fighting Soviets instead of fighting for Hitler. Kreiger began to understand. Using German expertise against a new enemy. Using warriors against barbarians. Patton's eyes glinted. These men know what's coming. They've seen the Red Army, watched it devour nations. They'll fight harder for us than they ever did for your Führer. A sergeant called cadence. The formation wheeled with perfect precision. 3,000 men moving as one. The American uniforms couldn't hide German training. But they're still mortal. Patton turned back to Kreiger. Still limited by human frailty, age, disease, death. What if we could preserve them at their peak? Create a strategic reserve that never ages, never loses its edge? The cryogenic program. Understanding flooded through Kreiger. You want to expand it. I want to perfect it. Patton's voice dropped. Imagine divisions of elite troops in cold storage, ready for any crisis, any war. Pull them out when needed. Put them back when the job's done. The revival rate will improve. Has to improve. Patton gestured at the formations. These men have already died once, for the wrong cause. Now they'll live forever for the right one. Boyer spoke up. The underground facilities can be expanded. We have German engineers, American resources. What we need is expertise. My expertise. Kreiger watched the soldiers drill. Boys who should be dead. Given second chances, second lives. Bludd stood silent, playing his role. Defeated officer, American tool. But Kreiger caught his eyes, saw the truth there. This was the plan. Not preservation for American empire, but preservation of the dream itself. These soldiers would sleep, wake, fight, sleep again, carrying forward what couldn't die. Show me the facilities. Kreiger heard himself speak. Show me what you have. Patton smiled. Predator recognizing predator. Outstanding. Boyer, arrange transport to the mountain site. Full tour. Let the doctor see what American engineering can accomplish. As they prepared to leave, Kreiger watched the formations. German precision in American wool. The future taking shape. Not the crude fantasies of the Third Reich, but something evolving. Adapting. The synthetic blood would flow. The ice would preserve. The dream would sleep and wake and sleep again, until the time was right, until the world was ready. Bludd had been right. Patience was the key, and they had all the time in the world. The last formation passed the review stand. 3,000 ghosts in olive drab, the beginning of an army that would never truly die. Kreiger climbed back into the jeep. Behind them, drill sergeants barked commands in accented English, hammering German steel into American shape, or perhaps the other way around. The Reich was dead. Long live whatever came next. Nice, France. 1652, local time, Allied Forces Headquarters, Hotel Negresco. The British major who entered the records office bore no resemblance to the French telephone technician who'd left the Free French headquarters on Rue de Rivoli 10 minutes earlier, or the American supply sergeant who'd searched files at 7th Army's logistics compound at dawn, or the Belgian liaison officer who'd spent 3 hours at RAF Coastal Command, or even the Swiss banker who'd traced wire transfers through the Canadian Corps financial office since breakfast. Agent Faces had been hunting across France and Germany since tasking from Colonel Boyer, each identity opening doors at different commands. The telephone technician got him into de Gaulle's people, resistance networks still operating despite the war's end. The supply sergeant accessed Patch's 7th Army records, tracking which units had been mysteriously reassigned. The Belgian found RAF transport logs showing flights that never appeared in official records. The banker followed payment authorizations through the Canadians, who handled Allied discretionary funds. Now, as Major Cartwright at the Negresco, Eisenhower's chef headquarters, he'd try for the top. 5 identities, 5 different Allied commands, pieces scattered across a chessboard. Someone wanted Patton dead badly enough to involve multiple national forces. British pounds, American logistics, French intelligence, Canadian money. All roads led here, to the supreme headquarters where someone with enough rank could orchestrate it all. Cartwright, signals intelligence. The accent was public school perfect. The papers were real, lifted from the actual Major Cartwright currently enjoying a wine-soaked lunch 3 blocks away. Need to verify some transmission intercepts. The corporal manning the desk barely looked up. 3rd floor, sir. Archives are in the old ballroom. Too easy. But then nobody expected infiltration this deep behind Allied lines. The war was over. Security was relaxing. Faces, master of disguise and spycraft, currently Major Cartwright, took the marble stairs 2 at a time. The ballroom had been converted to document storage. Row upon row of filing cabinets under crystal chandeliers. Incongruous elegance housing bureaucratic secrets. 2 clerks worked at far tables, sorting fresh intelligence. Faces moved with purpose. Men with purpose were rarely questioned. Cabinet after cabinet, operational orders, personnel transfers, supply requisitions, the boring blood of military machinery. Then, pay dirt, financial records. The Allies might have won with bullets, but they'd sustained themselves with money. And money always left trails. Operational Fund Disbursement. Recipient, Colonel James McCullen, commanding 5th Highland Regiment, Iron Devils. Amount, £20,000. Purpose, Special Operations. Classification pending. Date, 20th June, 1945. McCullen, the Iron Devils commander. £20,000 just days before the assassination attempt. Faces found the personnel file. McCullen, James, hereditary laird of Clan McCullen. Ancient Scottish nobility playing at modern war. The kind of man who'd consider honor a currency to be spent. More documents. A pattern emerging. Transfers to various British units. French resistance cells. Even some Soviet liaisons. All authorized by the same signatures. All just before operations that... Can I help you, Major? Faces turned smoothly. An American captain stood in the doorway. Intelligence Corps by his insignia. Sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. Just verifying some intercepts. Cartwright's voice never wavered. Jerry transmissions about financial transfers, making sure they match our records. Which sector? Bavaria, General Patton's area. Truth made the best lies. The captain relaxed fractionally. Patton, man's got half the German general staff on his payroll by now. converting Nazis faster than a traveling preacher. Quite, Faces chuckled. Though between you and me, some at headquarters think he's going too far. All this talk about fighting the Soviets next. Tell me about it. The captain moved closer, conspiratorial. Word is, Eisenhower's getting tired of his mouth, and Marshall back in Washington. He made a throat-cutting gesture. Really? Faces leaned in. I'd heard rumors. More than rumors. Friend of mine in plans showed me the contingency files. Ways to handle difficult commanders, transfer them to backwater posts, manufacture scandals, or if they're really stubborn. Accidents happen, Faces suggested. Exactly. Dangerous world, unexploded ordnance, Soviet agents, hell, even our own allies might take matters into their own hands if properly motivated. The captain was drunk. Not obviously, but the flush in his cheeks, the looseness of his tongue, liquid lunch syndrome. Faces pressed the advantage. These contingency files, they wouldn't include financial authorizations? Everything's got a budget. The captain laughed. Even assassination, though they call it leadership transition expenses in the paperwork. Faces memorized every word. After the captain wandered off, he dove deeper into the files, found what he was looking for in a locked drawer. Lockpicks made quick work of it. Operation Sunset, classification, eyes only. Objective, neutralization of politically unreliable commanders. Targets, list attached. Budget, £500,000 sterling. Authorization, Supreme Headquarters. The attached list made for interesting reading. Patton topped it, but others too. Officers who'd spoken against rapid demobilization, who'd warned about Soviet intentions, who'd suggested recruiting German expertise, all marked for transition. McCullen's name appeared as a subcontractor, as did several other unit commanders, British, French, even American. Eisenhower, or someone using his authority, was cleaning house, removing the warriors to make room for the politicians. Faces photographed everything, then carefully replaced each document. No trace of his presence. The drunk captain would remember a conversation with someone, but details would be fuzzy. The clerks had seen a British major who belonged. Time to go. He descended the marble stairs, footsteps echoing. The lobby spread before him, afternoon light slanting through tall windows, almost free. Just past the desk, out the door, into the streets of Nice, where... Leaving so soon, Michelino? Faces froze. He hadn't heard his true name spoken since joining U.S. Army intelligence. The corporal at the desk, same uniform, same posture. But the voice came from 3 feet to the left of where the man sat, like ventriloquism performed by someone who didn't understand human limitations. Don't forget to sign out, Mr. Paulino. The corporal's face was difficult to focus on. Not blurred, just wrong to look at directly, like looking through fun house glass. It was, and it wasn't. The cap's brim cast shadows that moved independently, crawling across his eyes that shifted when Faces tried to see them clearly. The voice came from behind him now, above. Such beautiful work today. Really the way you became Major Cartwright? Exquisite. We do appreciate artistry. Faces forced his hand steady as he signed the register. The pen felt too heavy. There's a good lad. The voice dripped amusement. From the left. The right. Inside the walls. Run along now. Tell your masters what you found. Set the wheels turning. My masters do so enjoy when the wheels turn. The corporal's head tilted. The shadow under the cap brim deepened, writhed. For 1 second, Faces glimpsed something else looking out. Ancient, amused, hungry. December 21st. A car, a truck. Such a mundane end for such a warrior. The rain, the speed, the wet roads. Accidents happen. Even to generals. Especially to generals who forget their place in the greater... The afternoon clouds parted. Sudden sunshine blazed through the tall windows, filling the lobby with golden light. The corporal shrieked, inhuman sound tearing from too many throats, and threw his arms up to shield his face. The sun! I hate the sun! The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, layered with harmonics that made the windows vibrate. Burning! Always burning! Then silence. The corporal blinked, lowered his arms. Normal again. Young face confused. Sorry, sir. Did you need something else? Think I dozed off for a second there. Faces back toward the door. Normal. Everything normal. The corporal rubbed his eyes, yawned. Just a bored kid pulling desk duty, no shadows moving wrong, no voice from empty air. But December 21st. That date burned in his mind. A car, a truck, an accident. Outside, nice sunshine felt like salvation. Faces lit a cigarette with trembling hands. Whatever had been in there, wearing the corporal like an ill-fitting suit, the sunlight had driven it back, forced it deep. December 21st, 5 months away. Patton would die in a car accident. Not British commandos, not poison, not bullets, just wet roads and twisted metal. The thing in the shadows had seen it, or planned it, or both. He walked to the train station on unsteady legs, bought a ticket to Marseille, would radio Boyer, report what he'd found. But the truth about the corporal, the thing wearing the corporal, that would stay unspoken. Who'd believe it? And December 21st? How could he warn about something that specific without explaining how he knew? As the train pulled away from Nice, faces tried to reconstruct the corporal's face in his memory. Couldn't. It slipped away like water. Only the voice remained. The scream when sunlight touched it. The date spoken with such certainty. The documents in his camera were real. The plot against Patton, real. But now he knew they were just surface. Something else moved beneath. Something that hated the sun, that knew the future, or made it. The train rocked through French countryside. Faces closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was already becoming someone else. New identity sliding over him like armor. December 21st. He'd remember. He'd warn them somehow, even if he couldn't explain the source, even if it sounded like madness. The assassination was a done deal. Money transferred, mechanics arranged, date set. But ancient things had their own investments in keeping Patton breathing past Christmas. July 23, 1945, 14:30, local time. 3rd Army Headquarters, Bavaria, American Occupation Zone. The briefing room's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps. Patton stood before a wall-mounted map of Europe, cigar smoke wreathing his head in blue-gray clouds. The underground air tasted stale, recycled through miles of ventilation ducts carved from Bavarian limestone. Boyer sat at the oak conference table, folders spread before him like tarot cards predicting corporate warfare. You know what I love about German efficiency, Alec? Patton tapped ash into a crystal tray liberated from some Nazi general's estate. The cigar's cherry glowed in the harsh light. They document everything, every formula, every process, every trade secret. Boyer adjusted his glasses. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple despite the cool 60-degree temperature the bunker maintained year-round. The Coca-Cola situation, sir? Situation? Patton's laugh echoed off concrete walls painted institutional green. It's a goddamn gold mine. Max Keith and his boys at Coca-Cola GmbH spent the whole war cut off from Atlanta. No syrup, no support. So what did they do? Created Fanta. New product, new market, new revenue stream. He pulled a bottle from behind the map. Orange liquid caught the light like liquid amber. The label read Fanta in that distinctive German script that managed to look both cheerful and militaristic. Whey and apple pumice. Patton held the bottle up like a trophy. Whatever they could scrounge. Kept the bottling plants running, kept the workers employed, kept the distribution network intact. That's the kind of initiative that wins wars. Boyer shifted papers. The folder's classification stamp read, Operation Soda Pop, Eyes Only. Inside, personnel files on chemists, plant managers, distribution executives. The entire Coca-Cola Deutschland infrastructure mapped out like an invasion plan. Rockefeller's people were sniffing around Stuttgart last week, Boyer reported. Standard Oil wants those chemists for their synthetic food programs. They're offering American salaries, relocation packages, the works. Let them sniff. Patton set the bottle down hard enough to rattle the table. We got there first. Boyer pulled out another sheet, fresh intercepts still smelling of teletype ink. That's just it, sir. They're not just sniffing anymore. Rockefeller's lawyers approached the German civilian administration yesterday. They're claiming the bottling plants are civilian assets, not subject to military requisition. Patton's expression darkened. Son of a bitch is trying to go around me. 20 million Reichsmarks. Boyer pointed to the key passage. Direct purchase offer for all Coca-Cola GmbH facilities. They're arguing soft drink production doesn't constitute strategic military necessity. Strategic military... Patton bit off the words, moved to the wall map. Every one of these plants is a node in our network. Trucks that go everywhere. Warehouses nobody questions. Perfect cover for moving sensitive materials. Rockefeller's team filed an injunction this morning. Boyer produced another document. They want immediate transfer of all beverage facilities to civilian control. They've got judges from here to Hamburg asking why the Third Army is running soda pop operations. The ventilation system wheezed, pushing stale air through the bunker. Patton stood silent for a moment, cigar smoke curling around him like battle fog. Show me what he really wants. His voice had gone dangerously quiet. Boyer pulled out a technical report, pages of chemical formulas. It's not about cola, sir. It's about what these chemists learned during the war. Petroleum-based food additives, synthetic flavoring compounds. Food from oil. Patton's lip curled. The Germans discovered you could crack petroleum into base compounds, rearrange the molecules, create flavors indistinguishable from natural ones. Boyer showed a cost analysis. Natural vanilla extract, $30 per gallon. Petroleum-derived vanillin, $3. Same taste, 1/10 the cost. And Rockefeller wants to put this in American food? The profit margins are extraordinary. Standard oils expanding beyond fuel, chemicals, plastics, and now food additives. The Coca-Cola team has 5 years' experience making palatable products from industrial waste, exactly the expertise he needs. Let them sniff. Patton set the bottle down hard enough to rattle the table. We got there first. 12 bottling plants from Munich to Hamburg. Every chemist, every manager, every truck driver who knows those routes. You know what that means? Patton strode to the side of the room where a display had been erected on wooden crates, prototype bottles standing at attention like glass soldiers. The labels were fresh from the printer, still crisp at the edges, red, white, and blue with an eagle spreading its wings. Joe Cola in bold American typeface. But Rockefeller's made a critical mistake. Patton picked up a prototype, held it to the light. The dark liquid inside gleamed like oil, but sweeter. He thinks this is about chemistry and courtrooms. He uncapped the bottle. The fizz burst out with a satisfying hiss. What we have here, gentlemen, is American money flowing through German bones. Boyer leaned forward. Sir? Every bottle sold in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, that's pure profit built on German expertise. Patton took a swig, grimaced slightly. Needs more sugar. Americans like it sweet. He set the bottle down among its brothers. Liberty Lemon Lime, Victory Vanilla Cream, Freedom Root Beer. A whole arsenal of Americana in glass. We're not just taking their bottling plants. We're taking their patents, their formulas, their trade secrets. The projections are staggering. Boyer pulled out another folder, always another folder. The Fanta formula alone, properly marketed in America, could generate 2 million annually. Add the brewing patents, the preservation techniques, the distribution systems we've captured. We're looking at 10 million, maybe 15. Patton's grin was sharp as shrapnel. All perfectly legal. American company selling American products based on acquired German assets. He moved along the display, touching each bottle like a general reviewing troops. Coca-Cola spent 5 years cut off from Atlanta. These Germans created an entire parallel industry. Now we own it. Every formula, every innovation, every desperate wartime discovery. The synthetic processes alone are worth millions to American food manufacturers. Patton finished. Not for petroleum additives, for efficiency, for preservation, for making products that last longer, ship better, taste consistent. The fluorescents flickered, casting dancing shadows across the prototype bottles. In the harsh light, they looked like liquid gold. Think bigger than Germany, Alec. Patton returned to the map, but his finger traced routes across the Atlantic. These products will sell in every American grocery store, every soda fountain, every military base worldwide. Using the German infrastructure for production, American markets for profit, Boyer understood. The beauty is the scale. Patton's eyes gleamed. Holzkirchen Brauerei has techniques that make beer last twice as long without refrigeration. You know what that's worth to American brewers? Millions. And we own the patents now. He gestured at the prototypes. Joe Cola is just the beginning. We've acquired flavor technologies, preservation methods, bottling innovations, 5 years of German desperation creating solutions American companies will pay fortunes for. Licensing agreements alone, Boyer was already calculating, will fund everything. Patton picked up another prototype, studied the label. Every shadow operation, every black project, every unofficial action, all paid for by American housewives buying soda at the A&P. Boyer pulled out patent documents, stamped with Nazi eagles now crossed out and replaced with property of US Army. The enzyme preservation process, the synthetic vitamin enrichment, the flavor stabilization compounds, each one a potential million-dollar technology. And Rockefeller wants to turn it all into petroleum food. Patton's smile was winter cold. While we're turning it into American gold, real products for real consumers, funding very real operations. The display stood there, innocent bottles hiding revolutionary intent. Soon they'd roll off production lines by the thousands in Germany, ship across the Atlantic, appear on American shelves, each one generating profit margins that would make Standard Oil jealous. The Germans spent 5 years perfecting efficiency, Patton concluded, making something from nothing. Now we make millions from their desperation. American capitalism at its finest, taking enemy assets and turning them into our treasury. Self-funding intelligence operations, Boyer added. More than self-funding, profit-generating. Patton set the bottle down with finality. And if Rockefeller wants it in civilian hands? His smile turned predatory. We'll put it in civilian hands. Boyer looked up from his calculations. Sir? Create a company, American-owned, properly incorporated. Patton began pacing, cigar trailing smoke. Make it boring. Corporate. The kind of name that makes lawyers fall asleep. A shell company? A real company that happens to be a shell. Patton's grin widened. Something forgettable. Generic. Boyer considered, fingers drumming on the table. General Holdings. American Manufacturing Consolidated. No, bigger. Vaguer. Patton waved his cigar dismissively. Universal Enterprises. Boyer tried again. Continental Corporation. Global Industries. Still too specific. We need something that could mean absolutely anything. Patton stopped pacing. Something so broad it's meaningless, like Extensive Enterprises. Boyer tested the name. Extensive Enterprises? Yeah, I like that. Extensive Enterprises. Patton rolled it around like wine. Could mean anything. Could do anything. So vague it's invisible. EE for short, Boyer made notes. Anonymous, forgettable, perfect for hiding in plain sight. Exactly. Patton moved to the wall, grabbed chalk, started sketching. Extensive Enterprises buys the German assets, all perfectly legal, all perfectly civilian. Rockefeller can't complain. He wanted military hands off these properties. But who controls Extensive Enterprises? Ghost shareholders, trust structures, paper trails that lead nowhere. Patton's chalk scratched across concrete. On paper, it's just another American company making money from post-war opportunities. Boyer's eyes lit with understanding. While in reality, it's our funding mechanism, our cover, our explanation for why trucks full of beverages drive unusual routes at unusual hours. Patton turned from his crude organizational chart. Extensive enterprises. Boring enough to ignore, big enough to hide anything. Where do we incorporate? Delaware for the paperwork, but headquarters ... Patton considered. Somewhere forgettable, Middle America, the kind of place nobody visits unless they have to. Delaware for the paperwork, but headquarters ... Patton considered. Somewhere forgettable, Middle America, the kind of place nobody visits unless they have to. Springfield, Illinois, Boyer suggested. State capital, but not Chicago. Lincoln's hometown, American as apple pie. Patton's eyes lit up. Springfield. Perfect. Who's going to suspect anything nefarious from Lincoln's hometown? Important enough to have infrastructure, boring enough to ignore, Boyer added. Plus, it's far from both coasts, away from New York lawyers and Washington bureaucrats. And I know someone there. Boyer made a note. Judge Harrison's son runs a law firm, handles corporate work. Discreet, reliable. Owes me from a situation in France. Even better, local connections. Patton's chalk flew across concrete, adding Springfield HQ to his diagram. Extensive enterprises of Springfield, Illinois. Heartland values, global reach. We'll need an actual building. Make it look established. Buy some old bank building downtown. Something with history, brass plaques and marble floors. Patton was building momentum. Hire local staff. Real Springfield people. Secretaries, accountants, maintenance. Give the town jobs, they'll protect their own. A legitimate business that happens to have extensive foreign operations, Boyer understood. Exactly. Who questions a successful Springfield company expanding overseas? Patton grinned. By the time Rockefeller's lawyers even find Springfield on a map, we'll be embedded in the community, sponsoring Little League teams, Chamber of Commerce members, model corporate citizens. He gestured at the prototype bottles. Extensive Enterprises of Springfield announces expansion into beverages. Midwest company bringing heartland values to rebuilding Europe. Politicians will eat it up with a spoon. And the real operations? Hidden under layers of Midwestern respectability. Patton ground out his cigar. The best place to hide is the middle of America, in plain sight. Boring as corn. Boyer closed his folder. Extensive Enterprises of Springfield, Illinois. I'll have incorporation documents drawn up within 48 hours. Harrison's boy can make it look like we've been there for years. Outstanding. Patton looked at his chalk diagram. Boxes within boxes, shadows within shadows, all centered on a forgettable city in the heart of America. Rockefeller wanted these assets in civilian hands. He's about to get his wish, just not the civilians he expected. The prototypes stood witness to the birth of a corporate ghost. Soon, extensive enterprises would exist, boring, forgettable, and perfectly positioned in Springfield, Illinois to run the shadow war Patton envisioned. All thanks to Rockefeller's legal maneuvering. Sometimes the enemy handed you exactly the weapon you needed. The prototypes stood witness to the birth of a corporate ghost. Soon, extensive enterprises would exist, boring, forgettable, and perfectly positioned in Springfield, Illinois to run the shadow war Patton envisioned. A knock interrupted their planning. Master Sergeant Williams entered with a sealed folder. Priority dispatch from our field assets, sir. Eyes only. Patton took the folder, broke the seal. His face darkened as he read. Christ on a crutch. Sir? Boyer leaned forward. The Eisenhower situation. Patton passed the report across. Read the December entry. Boyer scanned the intercepts, blood draining from his face. Car accident, December 21st. They're planning to kill you. If I make it that far, Patton pointed to another paragraph. If I return stateside before December, immediate psychiatric evaluation, institutionalization for battle fatigue and paranoid delusions. Either way, I'm finished. My God. Boyer set down the papers with trembling hands. They're not even hiding it. Which speeds up our timetable considerably. Patton moved to his desk, pulled out a bottle of bourbon, poured 2 glasses. I'll have to go under within weeks. Maybe days. Under, sir? The ice, Alec. Kreiger's program. Patton took a long pull of bourbon. I wanted to give him more time to perfect the process, get that revival rate up past 50%. But if they're planning my death for December... You're serious. Boyer set down his glass untouched. You're actually considering cryogenic suspension. Not considering. Decided. Patton stared at the map. Better a 50-50 chance of waking up than a certainty of death or a padded cell. Boyer was quiet for a moment. Who takes command when you're suspended? You do. Patton pulled out another folder, this one marked with red tabs. Full operational control, but your mission changes. Sir? Forget field operations. Forget direct action. Patton's voice was intense. Your job is to build. Build the money our scientists need. Build the networks to find and recruit the best minds. Build the intelligence apparatus to watch the East, but quietly, invisibly. Stay under Eisenhower's radar. Exactly. Let him think he won. Let him think the threat died with me. Patton refilled his glass. Use extensive enterprises as cover. A boring Midwest company making boring profits. Meanwhile, you're funding Kreiger's research, finding the next generation of weapons designers, building networks behind the Iron Curtain. The others? Savage handles tactical training, keeps our operators sharp. Bludd manages the technical projects, the frozen assets, the enhancement programs. Volkov runs Soviet intelligence. Patton met Boyer's eyes. But you coordinate. You allocate resources. You decide what gets funded and what doesn't. Based on one criterion. Will it help us win World War III? Patton moved to the map, traced the Iron Curtain with his finger. Because it's coming, Alec. 5 years, maybe less. When it does, I want weapons that make the atomic bomb look like a firecracker. I want intelligence networks that know what Stalin has for breakfast. I want everything ready. Boyer finally took a sip of bourbon. That's a massive undertaking. That's why I need you to disappear into bureaucracy, become the gray man nobody notices. Patton turned back. Extensive enterprises generates millions. Those millions fund black projects. Those projects prepare for the real war. What about direct operations? Minimal, defensive only, nothing that draws attention. Patton's expression was hard. Let Eisenhower and his politicians play their games. You play the long game. Every scientist recruited, every network established, every weapons program funded. That's your victory. And when the war comes? You wake me up? Patton smiled grimly. Along with whoever else we have on ice by then. A frozen army of specialists ready to fight with weapons the world's never imagined. Boyer studied the intercepts again. December 21st. That's 4 months away. 4 months I don't have. They'll manufacture a crisis. Find an excuse to recall me. Patton drained his glass. No, I go under within the month. On my terms. Preserved for when I'm needed. What do I tell the others? The truth. That I'm taking a calculated risk to preserve leadership for the future war. Patton pulled out a pen, started writing. But more importantly, tell them their mission. Build the arsenal. Build the networks. Build the funding. Everything else is secondary. He slid the paper across. Your authorization. Complete control of all projects, all funding, all decisions. Boyer read it carefully. This is enormous responsibility. You're the only one I trust with it. Patton's voice was certain. You understand both sides, the military necessity and the corporate camouflage. You can speak to generals and CEOs. You can hide millions in plain sight. And Eisenhower? We'll get reports of a bitter old general who died in his sleep. Meanwhile, that general will be sleeping a lot deeper than anyone imagines. Patton stood. Your mission is simple, Alec. Give our scientists everything they need. Find every advantage. Build every network. So when I wake up, we're ready for the real war. The bunker felt smaller suddenly. December 21st. A date circled on someone's calendar. A car, a truck, an accident that wasn't. But by then, Patton would be beyond their reach. Frozen, waiting. While Boyer built an empire of shadows funded by cola sales and hidden in Midwest respectability. "When do you go under?" Boyer asked quietly. 2 months, maybe 3. Kreiger needs time to prepare the chamber. Patton's smile was wolf-like. "Eisenhower thinks he's won. Let him. While he's planning my death, I'll already be sleeping, and you'll be building the weapons to win the war he's too blind to see coming." The future tasted like bourbon and possibility, and somewhere in Springfield, Illinois, extensive enterprises would soon exist, boring, profitable, and secretly preparing for World War III. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. I'm Thomas Richter, and it's been an honor to share this story with you. If you're ready for your next mission, we've got a full arsenal of series waiting for you on this platform. Each one is locked and loaded with the kind of stories that keep you pressing forward no matter what. For those who march to the beat of our soundtrack, all of our music is deployed across every major streaming platform: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, you name it. Just search for Springfield Syndrome or the audiobook title to add it to your playlist. Your support keeps us in the fight, and we'd be grateful if you'd drop us a review wherever you grab this audiobook. Your feedback is our intel. It helps us improve our operations and helps other listeners find their next objective. Stay strong, stay sharp, and remember, the only easy day was yesterday. This is Thomas Richter, signing off.